Year 1, Part 9. Oh, I do be tasting spring today, said Judy one early May morning. It had been a long, cold winter, though a pleasant one socially, with dances and doings galore. They had 2 dances at Silverbush for Joe, one the week after he came home, and one on the night before he went away again. Tillytuck had been the fiddler on both occasions, and Cuddles had danced several sets and thought she was nearly grown up. It was a family joke that Cuddles had cut Pat out in the good graces of Ned Avery, and had been asked to go with him to a dance at South Glen. But Mother would not allow this. Cuddles, she said, was far too young. Cuddles was peeved. It seems to me you're always too young or too old to do anything you like in this world, she said scornfully. And you won't let Joe tattoo my initials on my arm. It would be such a distinction. Nobody in school is tattooed anywhere. Trix Binney would just be wild with envy. Oh, since when have the gardeners taken to caring what a Binney thought of anything? Sniffed Judy. Spring was late in coming that year. Judy had a saying that it wouldn't be spring till the snow on the hill of the mist melted, and the snow on the hill of the mist wouldn't melt till spring. There were fitful promises of it, sudden lovely days, followed by bitter east winds and gray ghost mists, or icy northwest winds and frosts. But on this particular day it did seem as if it had really come to stay. It was a warm day of entrancing gleams and glooms. Once a silver shower drifted low over the hill of the mist, over the long house, over the field of the pool, over the silver bush, and away down to the gulf. Then the day made up its mind to be sunny. The distances were hung with pale blue hazes, and there was an emerald mist on the trees everywhere. The world was sweet, and the pool was a great sapphire. Cuddles found some white and purple violets down by the singing waters of Jordan, and young ferns were uncoiling along the edge of the birch grove. Pat discovered that the little clump of poet's narcissus on the lawn was peeping above ground. It gave her a pang to remember that she had got it from Betts. Betts, who had loved the springs so, but no longer answered to their call. Pat looked wistfully up the hill to the long house, the long, lonely house once more, for the people who had moved into it when the Wilcoxes went away had gone again, and the house was untenanted, as it had been when Pat was a child, and used to wish its windows could be lighted up at night like other houses. Now she no longer felt that way about it, though she still felt a thrill of pleasure when the sunset flame kindled its western windows into a fleeting semblance of life and color, and still shivered when it looked cold and desolate on moonlit winter nights. She resented the thought of anyone living there when Betts, sweet, beloved Betts, had gone, never to return. When it was empty, she could pretend Betts was still there, and would come running down the hill, as in the old fair and unforgotten days. On some of these spring evenings that seemed able to call anything out of the grave. When Judy tasted spring, it was time to begin house cleaning, and as Tillytook was away for the day on the other farm, as the old Adams place was now called, Judy and Pat took the opportunity to clean the granary chamber, a task which Judy performed rather viciously, for Tillytook was temporarily out of favor with her, partly because Just Dog had killed 3 of her chickens the day before and chewed up one leg of Siddy's khaki pants, and partly because he did be coming home drunk again last night and slipped in the stable. Judy's again seemed to imply that Tillytuck came home drunk frequently. As a matter of fact, this was only his second offense, and Tillytuck was such an excellent worker that Long Alec winked at his very occasional weakness. Not that he'd be giving in he was tight. Oh no, he would only say the moon seemed a bit unsteady like, and he was after warning me not to be getting any notion of marrying into me head, even if he did be liking to talk to me. Me! But would it be any use getting mad with the likes of him? It annoys him more to be laughing at him. He did be trying to get up the granary steps, me watching him through the little round window and having me own fun. But he couldn't trust his legs, so he paraded to the stable, walking very stiff and pompous. Oh, the dear knows what we'll be finding in his den. A goat's nest, I wouldn't be wondering. Tillytuck says he's going to get a radio, said Cuddles, who was not in school, as it was Saturday. Oh, a radio is it? I'm relieved to hear it. Maybe if he gets one, we won't be reading such trash as this. Judy indignantly held up a book she had discovered on Tillytuck's table. Do you be seeing it? The Mistakes of Moses. Do be a rank infidel book he borrowed off old Roger Madison of Silverbridge, and when I rated him for reading it, he says, "I like to see both sides of a question," says he. Him and his curiosity. Judy tossed the offending volume out of the window into the pig pen and ostentatiously washed her hands. You can't stick Tillytuck on the catechism, though, said Pat, and he really is a great hand to read his Bible. But he has his doubts about the story of Jonah and the whale, said Cuddles. He told me so. Does he be talking to children of such things? Judy was horrified. It's telling him me opinion of that, I'll be. Don't you be hating him, Cuddles. We've never held with infidelity at Silverbush, and if Moses did be making a mistake or two, it's me considered opinion that he knew more about things in general than Josiah Tillytuck and old Roger Madison put together. You're just a bit peeved with Tillytuck because he tried to cap your stories, suggested Cuddles slyly, for there had been quite a scene in the kitchen 2 evenings previously when Judy had told a tale of some lady on the south side who put rat poison by mistake for baking powder in the family pancakes, and Tillytuck had said he had eaten one of them. It isn't chanced I do be having with Tillytuck, said Judy passionately. I stick to the truth, but he do be making things up as he goes along. But you made candy for him afterwards, Judy. Oh, so I did, admitted Judy with a deprecating grin. He gets round the body somehow with his palaver. There do be times when he could wheedle the legs off an iron pot. Never be laughing at an old woman, Cuddles dear. Tillytuck and I do be understanding each other real well for all of our tiffs. If he likes to think I'm dying about him, he's welcome to it. And now we've finished the chamber, so we'll— The pigs are in the graveyard, Judy, cried Cuddles. I'll pig them, ejaculated Judy viciously as she whirled down the granary stairs in horror. But, after all, could you be blaming the poor pigs? They had never been themselves since they ate the Jerusalem cherry. In the afternoon they tackled the garret. Pat always loved cleaning in general, and the garret in particular. It was delightful to make Silverbush as clean and sweet as the spring. A new curtain here, a new wallpaper there, a spot of paint where it would do most good. Little changes that didn't hurt much, though Pat was always sorry for the old wallpapers and missed them. When you came to the garret, you always found so many things you had almost forgotten, and all the family ghosts got a good rummaging. Sure, housecleaning and digging a well do be the only 2 things I know of that ye begin at the top and work down with, said Judy. Well, the garret do be done, and that do be making the 40th time I've been at the cleaning of it. 41 years this very May, Patsy dear, since I took up with Silverbush, hoping to put the summer in if Long Alec's mother was suited with me. And here I do be still, and will be for 40 more years, I hope, said Pat with a hug. But we haven't quite finished, Judy. I want to see what's in that old black chest in the corner. It hasn't been turned out properly for years.
Oh, there's nothing much there but the relics of old decency, said Judy.
We really should examine it. The moths may have got into it.
Sure, and it's always easy to find an excuse for what you want to do, said Judy slyly. But we'll ransack it if you wait till I get supper. We'll come up here in the dim and see what's in it.
Accordingly, after supper, Pat betook herself to the garret, which was growing shadowy, although the outside world was still in the glow of sunset. It was a spring sunset, pale golds and soft pinks and ethereal apple greens shading up to silvery blue over the birches. Pat ached with the loveliness of it, being one of those who feel the thrill of beauty like a pang. Violet mists were veiling the distant hills. The little green skirted maples over at Swallowfield were dancing girls with the dark spruces behind them, like grim old maid duennas. Sid had ploughed the mince pie field that day, and it lay in beautiful, red, even furrows. From the field of the pool there sounded the dreamy trill of a few frogs through the brooding spring evening, and there was some indefinable glamour over everything. Things were a little queer as they had sometimes seemed in childhood on certain evenings. This makes me think of the night you told me Cuddles was coming, she said to Judy, who came up the stairs panting a little. Oh, Judy dear, just look at that sunset.
Anything special about it? Asked Judy, a little shortly, because she didn't like the idea of being out of breath after only 2 flights of stairs.
There's something special about every sunset, Judy. I never saw a cloud just that color and shape before. See? The one over the tall fir tree.
I'm not denying it's handsome, sure, and I wouldn't be like old Rob Pennock at the South Glen. His wife was rail ashamed of his insensibility. He doesn't know there's such a thing as a sunset, she says to me once, impatient like.
How terrible it must be to not see and feel beauty, said Pat softly. I'm so glad I can find happiness in all lovely little things, like that cloud. It seems to me that every time I look out of a window, the world gives me a gift. Look at those old dark firs around the pool. Judy, does it ever seem to you that the pool is drying up? It seems to me that it isn't as deep as it used to be.
I'm fearing it is, acknowledged Judy. It's a way them pools has. There was one below Swallyfield when I was here first, and now it's nothing but a green dimple with some ferns and bracken in it.
I don't know how I'll bear it if it dries up. I've always loved it so.
What don't you be loving around the old place, Patsy dear?
The more things and people you love, the more happiness you get, Judy.
Oh, and the more sorrow too. Now, whatever made me go and say that? It just slipped out.
It's true, I suppose, said Pat thoughtfully. It's the price you pay for loving, I guess. If I hadn't loved Beth so much, it wouldn't have hurt me so terribly when she died. But it was worth the hurt, Judy.
It always do be, said Judy gently. So never you be minding me silly talk of their sorrow.
Well, how about the black chest, Judy?
Cuddles wants us to be waiting till she can come. She said she wouldn't be long. She had a bit of Leighton to look after. She do be getting interested in her books at last. Joe did be giving her a bit of advice now and then.
I hope we'll be able to afford to give her a real good education, Judy. We never do seem to have much money, I admit.
Too hospitable, I'm supposing some do be thinking. Mrs. Binney says we throw out more with a spoon than the men can bring in with a shovel. Binney like. Our men like the good living. And what if we don't be having too much money, Patsy dear? Sure, and we have lashings of things no money could be buying. There'll be enough squeezed out for Cuddles when the time comes, never fear. The good man above will be seeing to that.
The drone of the separator came up from the yard below, where Tillytuck was operating under the big maple over the well and singing a psalm sonorously,
with McGinty and some cats for audience. It struck Pat that Tilly Tuck had a remarkably good voice, and he was setting the saucer for the fairies, just as Judy always did. I used to think the fairies really came and drank it. I wish I could believe things like that now, Judy. It do be fun believing things. I often wonder, Patsy dear, at all the skeptics do be losing. As for the saucer of milk, the dog McGinty gets it now mostly. Look at him sitting there and thumping his bit of a tail every time Tilly Tuck gets to the end of a verse. He may not be having any great ear for music, but he do be knowing how to get round Tilly Tuck. Judy, I'm almost sure dear little dogs like McGinty must have souls. Little bit of one, maybe, said Judy cautiously. I never could hold with the verse without our dogs, Patsy dear, though never be telling the minister or Tilly Tuck I said it. Whenever I see the dog McGinty, I think of Jingle. Wasn't it the letter from him you got today? And is there any word of him coming home this summer? No, Pat sighed. She had been hoping Hilary would come. He has to work in vacation, Judy. I suppose his mother doesn't be thinking any more about him than she ever did. I don't know. He never mentions her name now. Of course, she is quite willing to send him all the money he needs, but he's terribly independent, Judy. He is determined to earn all he can for himself. And as for coming home, well, you know, since his uncle died and his aunt went to town, he really has no home to come back to. Of course, I've told him a dozen times he is to look upon Silverbush as home. Do you remember how I used to set a light in this very window when I wanted him to come over?
And he never failed to come, did he, Patsy? I'm almost believing if you set a light in this windy tonight, he'd see it and come, Patsy dear. Judy's voice grew wheedling and confidential. Do you ever be thinking a bit about Jingle? You know. Pat laughed, her amber eyes full of roguish mirth. Judy, darling, you've always had great hopes of making a match between Hilary and me, but they're doomed to disappointment. Hilary and I are chums, but we'll never be anything else. We're too good chums to be anything else. You seem so set on turning everyone else down, sighed Judy. And I always did be liking Jingle. It's not a bad thing to be chums with your husband, I'm told. Why are you so set on me having a real beau, Judy? Anyone would think you wanted to get rid of me. It's better you're knowing than that, me jewel. When you lave Silverbush, the light of old Judy Plum's eyes will go with you. Then just be glad I mean to stay, Judy. I never want to leave Silverbush. I want to stay here always and grow old with my cats and dogs. I love the very walls of it. Look, Judy, the Virginia creeper has got to the roof. It's lucky we have so many vines here, for the house does need painting terribly, and Dad says he can't afford it this year. Your Uncle Tom is painting Swallyfield, white, with green trimmings, it's to be. He started today. Yes. A shadow fell over Pat's face. Everyone in North Glen knew by this time that Tom Gardner was writing to a lady in California, though not even the keenest of the gossips had found out anything more, not even her name. Swallowfield really needs painting, but it has needed it for years, and now Uncle Tom seems to have a mania for sprucing things up. He's even going to have that dear old red door stained and grained. I've always loved that red door so much. Judy, you don't think there's anything in that story of his going to be married, do you? I wouldn't be saying, and me fine Aunt Edith wouldn't be liking it, said Judy in a tone which indicated that for her, at least, there would be balm in Gilead if Tom Gardner really up and married at last. There do be another story round, Patsy, that Joe do be engaged to Enid Sutton. Is there any truth in it? I can't say. He saw a good deal of her when he was home. Well, She is a very nice girl and will suit Joe very well. Pat felt herself very magnanimous in thus according approval to Joe's reputed choice. If it had been Sid, Pat shivered a little, but Sid wouldn't be thinking of marrying for years yet. Oh, if it ever comes to a wedding, I hope Enid will be having better luck with her dress than her mother had. There was a dressmaker in town making it, the Suttons holding themselves a bit above the Silverbridge dressmaker, and she was sick, but she sent word she'd have the dress ready for the wedding day without fail. When the morning come, she did be phoning up. She had sent it by the train, but when the train come in, never a wedding dress was on it. And what's more, that dress never turned up. Never, Patsy dear. The poor little bride was married in a blue serge suit and tears. What became of the dress, Judy? The good man above knows, and him only. It was shipped to be express agent at Charlottetown, and that was the last ever seen of heard of it. White satin and lace, but at that I do be thinking she was luckier than the bride at Castle Macdermot. What happened to her? Oh, it was 100 years afore me time there, but the story was told me. She went to the wardrobe and put her hand in to fetch out her wedding dress, and Judy leaned forward dramatically in the gathering gloom, and it was grasped by a bony hand. Whose? Pat shivered deliriously. Oh, whose? That did be the question, Patsy dear. No good Christian, I'm telling you. The poor bride fainted, and the wedding had to be put off, and the groom was killed on the way home, being thrown from his horse. Many's the time I did be seeing the wardrobe when I was working there, but never would the Macdermots allow that door to be opened again. The story went that the wedding dress was still hanging there. Oh, Judy sighed. I believe I'll have to be paying a visit to old Ireland this fall. I do be having a hankering for it I haven't had for years. Cuddles came running up the stairs, preceded by Bad, who covered 3 steps at a leap. Oh, I hope I'm in time. I finished that Latin. No wonder Latin died. Did people ever really talk that stuff? Talk it just as you and I do? I can't believe it. Joe made me promise I'd lead my class in it, and if I did, he'd tattoo my arm next time he came, no matter what fuss you made. So I'm going to do it or bust. The young ladies of Castle Macdermot never did be talking of busting, said Judy reproachfully. Oh, I suppose they talked a brogue you could cut with a knife, retorted Cuddles. Well, let's get at the old chest. It's such fun to rummage through old boxes. You never know what may come across. It's like living for a while in yesterday.